really listened when a woman spoke, they don't really listen. They're looking at your tits, okay? Okay, guys, so today we are talking about women are now noticing that the men are gone. So basically, women have told men for 40 years that they don't want to be approached. They have told men that they can do everything by themselves. And it turns out when women keep saying that, men, they go where they're wanted. They'll listen and they'll leave them alone. Mainstream media has been in denial for some time about the fact that men are disengaging from women. It used to be expected that men would court women and romance them. Men would move heaven and earth to attract a woman to be his girlfriend or his wife. Women called that misogyny and patriarchy and rewrote the social contract. Now, we have the circus that is the dating market in the modern day. It's gotten so bad that outlets like the New York Times have finally caught wind of men responding to women's disgust and mistreatment. A writer for the New York Times is begging men to come back to women and romance and court them again. Let's take a look at what they want to say. Now, by the way, guys, as I'm reading this is going to be a call-in show. So I want you guys to think of the question. If you were asked, where have the men gone? What's your answer? So I was excited. This article took place in Chicago. That's where I'm from. Also, if you want unlimited super chats, it's on the website. Okay. A warm Saturday night in Wicker Park, a vibrant stretch of Chicago where 7 restaurants crowd a single block. Troy and I were having dinner at Mama Delia, one of the quieter spots. The sidewalk patio held 5 tables, 2 tops, including ours, and a pair pulled together for a group of 8 young women. At those tables, Troy was the only man. The scene was beautiful. Low lights, shared plates, shoulders angled in. This kind of evening, people wait for all winter. But still, I found myself watching the crowd as it moved past us. Women walking in pairs or alone, dressed with care. At a table after table at the nearby restaurants, there was a noticeable absence of men, at least of men seated in what looked like dates. Troy and I have known each other for almost 20 years. We met at Playboy, of all places, back when we were both learning how desire gets packaged, sold, and sometimes misunderstood. We stayed close friends, bonded, not just by our opinions, but by the effort it takes to stay into someone's life. That night, we made the effort, but still, what I saw unfolding around us felt like something else entirely. A collective shift I couldn't unsee. It started to become clear the previous April, where a man who had been pursuing me canceled dinner at the last minute. There was a scheduling mix-up with his son's game, and I understood. I'm a hockey mom, I get it. Still, I went. I wore what I would have worn anyway. I looked at the table, I ordered well, and I watched the room. Only 2 tables nearby seemed to hold actual dates. The rest were groups of women or women alone, each one occupying her space with quiet confidence. No shrinking, no waiting, no apologizing. The night marked something, not a heartbreak, but an unveiling. A sense that what I'd been experiencing wasn't just personal misalignment, but something broader, cultural. A slow vanishing of presence. I spent over a decade behind the curtain of digital desire. As the custodian of records for Playboy and its affiliated hardcore properties, including sites like Spice TV, I was responsible for some of the most infringed upon adult content in the world. I worked closely with copyright attorneys and marketing teams to understand exactly what it took to get a man to pay for content he could easily find for free. We knew it worked. We knew how to frame a face, a gesture, a moment of implication, just enough to ignite a fantasy and open a wallet. I came to understand in exact terms what cues tempt the average 18 to 36-year-old heterosexual man, what drew him in, what kept him coming back. It wasn't intimacy, it wasn't mutuality, it was access to stimulation, clean, fast, and frictionless. In the world, there's no need for conversation, no effort, no curiosity, no No curiosity, no one's feelings to consider, no vulnerability to navigate, just a closed loop of consumption. What struck me wasn't the extremity of the content. It wasn't the emotional vacancy behind it, the drift. The way many men had quietly withdrawn from intimacy and vulnerability, not with violence or resistance, but with indifference. They weren't sitting across from someone on a Saturday night trying to connect. They were scrolling, dabbling, disappearing behind firewalls, filters, and curated personas. And while they disappeared, women continued to gather, to tend, to notice who wasn't arriving, and to show up anyway. I'm 54. I've been dating since the mid-'80s. I've been married, I've been a mother, I've gotten divorced, and had many relationships, both long and short. I remember when part of heterosexual male culture involved showing up with a woman to signal something: status, success, desirability. Women were once signifiers of value, even to other men. Now it doesn't mean anything to buy her dinner because some other dude is smashing her after dinner. Oh, thank you for the $200 super chat. Holy crap. Thank you, William. Thank you so much. Wow. Holy crap. We haven't had one like that in forever. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. Where was I reading? Okay. Women were once signifiers of value, even to other men. It wasn't always healthy, but it was meant that men had to show up and put in some effort. The dynamic has quietly collapsed. I know, I can't read, okay? We have moved into an era where many men no longer seek to impress women, no longer seek women to impress other men or to connect across difference. They perform elsewhere alone. They've filtered us out. I recently experienced a flicker of possibility with James. We met on Raya, the dating app. There was something mutual from the start, a wordplay, an emotional precision, a tone that felt attuned. It was brief, but it was caught light. I remember saying to him, even fleeting connections matter when they're mutual and lit from inside, and I meant it. There was just enough spark to wonder what might unfold, enough curiosity to imagine a doorway, but he didn't step through it, not with a plan, not with a presence. He hovered, flirted, retreated, offering warmth but no direction. Sexual tension and spark aren't reason enough to sit still and hope there's substance behind the shimmer. So I named what I felt. I texted him clearly with care, not simply to declare attraction, but to extend a real invitation to explore what was possible. I didn't chase. I invited, leaving the door open. If he ever wanted to cross the threshold, not just to take, but to meet, I was willing, I wanted to, and I still do. He never replied. He still follows my Instagram stories. One of those small gestures of passive engagement that so many of us now mistake for closeness. It looks like interest, but it feels like silence. Who thinks that viewing an Instagram story is closeness? All right, there are thousands of Jameses. I have known dozens. The arc varies, but the undertow is familiar. What I won't entertain is directionless orbiting. The things so many men now seem to mistake for connection, the perpetual maybe, the emoji check-ins, the casual seeing where this goes without it ever going anywhere. We call it a situationship, but mostly it's an avoidance. An avoidance of ownership, of feeling, of behavior, of sex that isn't a means to an end, but it is communication. So women often complain about situationships, the same way that men complain about not getting laid on a date. Women's burden of performance is getting men to commit after sex. Men's burden of performance is to get women to make women want to have sex with them. That's the burden of performance we both have. There was a time not so long ago where even a one-night stand with tangled limbs and a shared breakfast, when the act of staying the night didn't announce a relationship, just a willingness to be human for a few more hours. Now, even that kind of unscripted contact feels rare. We've built so many boundaries that we've walked off the very moments that make connection memorable. And frankly, morning sex is often the best sex. Sometimes you get a side of eggs before you disappear from their bed and their life forever. The idea that vulnerability is a threat instead of an invitation has created a culture of hesitation, of men circulating intimacy but never entertaining it. And the result is thousands of tiny silos. Everyone performing closeness, but no one making a move that binds. Isolation, loneliness, a hunger for contact that has nowhere to land. Maybe we're between paradigms, mourning what's fallen, not yet fluent in what comes next. The infrastructure of intimacy, slowness, curiosity, accountability have been eroded by haste, convenience, and a kind of sanctioned emotional retreat. It's not about blaming men. It's about noticing the imbalance, about grieving what's not meeting us, and about refusing to dress it up as a personal failure when it's actually a collective reality. Here's what I'll say. You're missed, not just by me, but by the world you once helped shape. We remember you, the version of you that lingered at the table, that laughed from the chest, that asked questions and waited for answers, that touched without taking, that listened, really listened when a woman spoke. They don't really listen. They're looking at your tits, okay? You are not gone, but your presence is thinning in restaurants and friendships and the slow rituals of romantic emergence. You've retreated not into malice, but into something softer and harder at once. Avoidance, exhaustion, disrepair. Maybe no one taught you how to stay. Maybe you tried it once and it hurt. Maybe the world told you your role was to provide, to perform, and to protect, but never to feel. But here's what's real. We never needed you to be perfect. We just needed you to be with us. Not above, not muted, not masked, just with. And you can still come back, not by becoming someone else, but by remembering what connection feels like when it's honest and slow, when it's earned and messy and sacred. Chicago says the article is an excellent example of the differences in thought processes between men and women. Thank you. We're still here. Those of us willing to concentrate or co-create something true. We're not impossible to please. One in the chat if women can be pleased. Two in the chat if we're impossible. We're not asking for performances. We are asking for presence, for courage, for breath and eye contact, and the ability to say, I'm here. I don't know how to do this perfectly, but I'll try. Come back, not with flowers or fireworks, but with willingness, with your whole beautiful and perfect heart. We're still here and we haven't stopped hoping. And for me, I'll keep showing up, not because I'm waiting, but because I know what it feels like when someone finally arrives. So we're going to do a call-in show. So we'll put the link in the chat. We want to know, where have the men gone? And how would you answer this if a woman asked you?